We bring on our power panel. Joining me now is Alicia Menendez, senior advisor at the New Democrat Network and New Policy Institute. Also with me, Washington bureau chief for the Huffington Post, Ryan Grimm. And finally, from Washington, D.C., Republican strategist John Ferry. First question, should Washington rip a page from the NFL playbook? Football players and owners were all hugs after reaching a deal to end the lockout and save the season for millions of fans. The key, both sides were willing to compromise.
I hope we gave a little lesson to the people in Washington, because the debt crisis is a lot easier to fix than this deal was.
But in Washington, Republicans are refusing to budge and are blocking the president at every turn. Ryan, it's fourth and long, late in the fourth quarter. Will Republicans call a play that's in the best interest of the American people?
You know, what this really does show is that people need a deadline to force action. You know, the players and the owners, they probably would have sniped at each other over Twitter for months on end if there wasn't a football season that they were about to miss. So that action, you know, forced them into some sort of compromise. I think we're going to see this. I think we're going to see the same thing in the next few days or even weeks over in Congress as this deadline of August 2nd forced them into action. You know, John Boehner's bill is coming to the floor tomorrow. Let's say it passes. It probably will barely pass. It'll get smoked over in the Senate. Then Harry Reid McConnell's thing comes back to the House, and then it's up to the House at that point to decide what they're going to do with the fate of the global credit market in their hands. And I think they'll probably pass something.
John, in the middle of all of this, we are facing with seniors not knowing and wondering what's going to happen with their Social Security, veterans, all kinds of people. If we're using football language, the only people being tackled here is the hopes and security of American people. What's going to happen from your party?
Well, Al, let me tell you this. I think that Ryan's right. That a deadline's important. That's one lesson. The other important lesson to learn is that the NFL and the players had a financial incentive to reach a deal. If there's no NFL season, nobody gets paid. So I think that one thing we could think about is if Barack Obama doesn't sign a deal from the Congress, he ought not get paid, and none of the legislators should get paid. Take away their pay if they can't get this debt limit thing solved. I think that's another way to get their fire into the belly so they can cut a deal.
Well, Alicia, the currency in politics is votes. Where can this go in terms of the electorate? When you look at the polls I showed earlier, we can show them again. 77% of the American people polled by the Washington Post says the Republicans are not compromising enough. 14% say they're too willing. Will it come a point, seeing all of the calls that are going into the Capitol today, seeing the websites crashing of people, will it come to a point that the currency of American politics, votes, where people start saying, wait a minute, there can be a backlash here?
Well, you'd certainly think so, and you'd certainly hope so. And I think if we were talking about national politics, that might be true. I think the challenge is that some of these Republicans come from districts where they really do believe that they were elected on a mandate to do exactly what they are doing. And that's part of the challenge here, Reverend Al. And so, I think the drama has moved from this being about Democrats and Republicans coming together and is now squarely in Republican court. You have Republicans coming out saying they won't even vote for Boehner's plan, which begs the question, what will they be voting for?
Well, that's a good question. Let's go on to another subject here. Is Sarah Palin's act officially over? Palin's much-hyped documentary, hilariously titled Undefeated, is tanking. Despite adding theaters in at least 4 big markets, ticket sales for a pro-Palin film dropped a whopping 63%. Now, we hear the film is heading to pay-per-view September 1st. Palin said recently she's still thinking about running for president, but her star seems to be fading. John, have we seen the end of Sarah Palin?
Well, I think what you've seen with Sarah Palin is you've seen her kind of be pushed to the side because of Michelle Bachmann. Michelle Bachmann's really taken a lot of Sarah Palin's thunder, and I think that if she's going to get in, she better make her decision fairly quickly. I think her big problem, though, is if she gets in and loses, then her star power is completely lost. So, I'm not sure where Palin's going next. I think that she still wants to be a player, but I'm not quite sure how she's going to play in the future.
Based on the timing of a decision, Ryan, will a Palin endorsement mean anything in the Republican primaries? If she decides to get out before she totally crashes, could she throw a weight somewhere and really make a difference, or is she too polarizing for a lot of the candidates that are out there?
You know, she still definitely has a lot of pull with primary voters. The question is whether or not she wants to use it, because John raises a very good point. She's operating under the notion that if it ain't broke, you don't fix it. She's making a ton of money traveling around the country, selling all books or whatever else she can ink her name to. So Palin Inc. comes under threat if it is shown to not have the same influence that it once did. So if she endorses a candidate and that candidate then loses, that's a chink in her armor. So business-wise, it'd probably be smarter for her to just stay out of it.
But Ryan, if you're throwing a movie and theaters dropping 63% in sales, it's broken. Don't tell nobody, but
that doesn't help. Right.
Let me ask you, Alicia, if you were advising her, what would you say to her? Cut your losses before everyone notices? I mean, what would you say?
Well, I'm not one to defend Sarah Palin, but I will say this was not a Palin production as much as it was a piece of Palin propaganda. I don't know that she has to take responsibility for this film. What she does need to take responsibility for, if she wants to run for office, is articulating some vision of what America would look like under her leadership. And to date, she hasn't done that. She has been much more interested in producing reality TV shows. So I think we'll see what she does next. I do think it makes sense, though, for her to endorse someone, because otherwise I don't see how she stays relevant throughout this cycle.
Last question. Can Christie run for president without admitting it? New Jersey Governor Christie went to Iowa to talk about education reform. He continues to say he's not running for president. But that didn't stop him from taking a shot at the field.
If I believe that someone has distinguished themselves in a way on the issues that I care about, then I feel enthusiastic enough to endorse them, I will.
Alicia, does Christie just dislike the field because he's not in it?
I don't think so. I think this is maybe the first thing Christie and I ever agree on. None of these people are particularly impressive, but I think Christie would be well advised to actually focus on his home state, my home state of New Jersey, where he has plummeting poll numbers. He is at the lowest approval rating of his time in office, and that's in large part because while people like his swagger, they don't like his substance. New Jerseyans are finally tuning in. He just passed a piece of legislation that takes tremendous cuts to public employee benefits. And while that all sounds good, when it starts affecting the class size for your kid, you feel differently about it.
John, what does Christie do in light of this? Does he run, or does he keep flirting with it?
Christie has a lot of support out there, especially amongst big money donors who really like his message of fiscal responsibility. I think he's taking a long, hard look at it. My guess is he probably will stick to his pledge not to run, because I think he wants to see through his reforms in New Jersey. And while they're tough choices he's making, I think that the polls will bounce back, and New Jersey will be much better off because of the tough choices he's making right now. That being said, the field, I think, is still pretty strong. Most of the field is really kept pretty quiet because they don't want to get involved in the middle of this debt crisis between Obama and the Congress. So the race hasn't officially begun yet. It's going to begin really with the Iowa straw poll in the couple of weeks.
I'm going to have to leave it there. Sorry, Ryan, but I'm so tempted because John said the race hasn't begun, and most of the candidates are quiet because they don't want to get in the middle of the debt crisis. I thought they wanted to be president. Well, thank you all for a great panel tonight.